So the way this will work is that on this mic, our representatives from our cultural centers and resource centers will ask their questions here. And then these two mics, sort of kind of splitting the candidates, one will talk on that or vice versa, whichever mic. The way it'll work is that we will start with 2 minutes. Each candidate will be able to speak about their platform. And then after each candidate goes through, then we will start with questions, and then the response time for the candidates is 1 minute for all the questions. Yeah, okay, so we'll start off with our executive vice president candidate.
Alrighty, hello. Well, thank you all again for waiting. Definitely, this is a great event, and definitely thank you to the Elections Commission, Dean of Students for hosting this. It is really wonderful that we're all here speaking about our platforms. So in terms of myself, my name is Matt Rain. I am currently a student body senator here at the University of Arizona. I am a junior, and in years past, I was on the Elections Commission my freshman year. I was on the policy team my sophomore year, and then also I've been involved in various different clubs and organizations, being in the Honors College, being in Students for Sustainability, etc. So my platform really is three-pronged. One is that I want to have individual attention for clubs on campus. 2, I want to better connect senators with their college. And 3, I want us all in this room and all around campus to engage in the fight for lower tuition. So for the first one, right, connecting better with clubs, we have more than 600 plus clubs here on campus, but really only about 200 to 250 come to us for club funding. We have more than $200,000 available, and oftentimes clubs miss out on that. And I think a large reason why they miss out on that is because they don't have a friend in ASUA. Usually when clubs come to us for funding, they have a friend in ASUA, etc. So I want each club ad to be represented and go to clubs themselves. So my second platform is connecting senators with their college better. This is our 3rd year now going into college representation. Hopefully we'll have all of the seats filled. We will have all of the seats filled. Really whether that's newsletters or holding meetings in the individual colleges, it's going to be really important. And also having those senators look over clubs in their own college, I think is really important as well. Lastly, I want us all really to engage in the fight for tuition. I know it seems like it's an uphill battle, and it is an uphill battle, but this is something I think we all have the power to really advocate for and control. So I really hope I earn all of your votes for Executive Vice President, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Up next are one of our 2 candidates for Administrative Vice President.
Hi, my name is Sean McCarthy. I'm a sophomore right now studying law and political science. I'm currently serving as the Deputy Chief of Staff to the Administrative Vice President this year. Got involved with that last year, shadowing the last Administrative Vice President, so I have a lot of passion for this position. Basically, I have 5 platforms right now. I'm going to try to run through them really quick. My first one starts with Campus Pantry. I would like to develop a new source of funding for them, starting with partnering with the union and trying to get all the union services every time you pay for something, every time you get a bill. Say your bill is $860. I'd like to have a system arranged where you can donate the rest of the remaining dollar to Campus Pantry, where they just give you that option. So that's a small source of funding per student, but it's a lot in the big grand scheme of things. My second one is I want to create an ASUA strategic planning initiative. So right now we have a vision, but we don't have a mission statement, and I'd like to really align the goals of at least the programs and services, trying to, create something new all the time, focus all their efforts towards something that they're going to do together. On top of that, I want to create open monthly forums, which check the budgeting we have for that, and I want students to be able to come out and voice their opinions instead of having to contact senators that they don't know about and things like that. So on top of that, I want to create a liaison between ResLife and ASUA. There's a stigma in ASUA that we can't partner with anybody in ResLife because we just can't get our stuff in there and we can't post or anything in there. So I've already talked to a couple people in ResLife, and that's in the works. I really want to do that and get more collaboration between the two. I want to create an ASUA Next Steps optional program, which is the program people do before they come to college here at the UofA, and they have to go through these learning initiatives. And I want to give an ASUA presentation where they have to learn about the 13 programs and services, where they can see what's available to them. And the last one is I want to create an alternative disciplinary action diversion program in the Dean of Students and Park and Transportation Services to create, to allow people to do community service instead of for tickets or getting put on deferred eviction immediately, and raising the university's community service hours through university-approved organizations. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Next, our second candidate for administrative vice president.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. So my name is Kate Rosenstengel. I'm currently a sophomore here at the U of A, and I'm double majoring in PPL, which is philosophy, politics, economics, and law, and global studies with a minor in Spanish. So a little bit about me. I currently serve as a student body senator, and I serve as the representative to the administrative branch. So I've had the opportunity to sit in on the directors' councils for this past semester, and that's really where I became passionate about this branch and how I developed my platforms. So with that, I have three main platforms. My first platform is that I want to improve the diversity that we have in ASUA, particularly in the administrative branch. So a lot of times, and I mean this in two ways, so a lot of times you'll see the same kinds of people applying for the same kinds of positions, and I think it's a very large campus and there's a lot of untapped potential, so I'd want to reach out to places particularly like the cultural centers to get new faces and new perspectives involved in ASUA. And the second way that I want to improve our diversity is that I think it's very important that people that are hired for positions in the administrative branch have an idea of what diversity means in their program and what it means to be inclusive to people of different identities. My second platform is that I want to increase awareness of what the administrative branch does. The administrative branch hosts 13 programs and services, and I think by making a programs fair, very similar to a clubs fair that you might see on the mall, showcasing those programs could help increase awareness of what they do and get people involved, and show people that they are associated with ASUA. And my third platform has to do with increasing communication and collaboration between the different programs and services. So there's so much talent in every program, and many of the ideas that are associated with the different programs and services are very intersectional, like Pride Alliance, FORCE, Students for Sustainability. These all have overlap, and I think that if we got people working together and communicating about what these intersections look like, we could really improve what our programs are. So thank you guys so much. I'm really looking forward to your questions.
Thank you. Up next is one of our 4 ASUA student body presidential candidates.
Hey, my name's Amos. I'm running for president. I'm a psychology major here. And front and center, what I want to do as student body president is address the mental health on campus. I think I want to kind of treat mental health as kind of the disease that it is. I know anxiety and depression are really affecting my generation, and people are just not as happy as they once were. You know, we have these social media outlets that are supposed to bring us together, yet we have the loneliest generation in a long time. And I want to address that. I want to create meditation centers around campus. I want to just raise awareness on the issue, making sure people don't feel lost, making sure people don't feel making sure people have the resources available to them to address mental health issues on campus. And last, I want to raise the national narrative on what it means to be a college student, and I want to challenge administrators on lowering the drinking age. I think that's one big thing that needs to be addressed as a college student. The fact that we say that you need to be 21 to drink alcohol, I think it puts a lot of people in a tough position. People are buying fake IDs, committing crimes doing that to purchase alcohol, just saying that a college kid can't drink alcohol, which I think is bizarre. And we miss out on an opportunity to bring people together from all walks of life and really have the chance to make this school just the happiest place possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Up next is our second out of 4 ASUA student body presidential candidates.
It's me, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. Hi, y'all. How are you doing? Hope well, staying somewhat dry, right? So I'm Stefano Saltalamacchia, for those of you who don't know me. You can call me Salt if you like, or Steph. I go by whatever is respectable. I use he, him, his, or they, them. So my platforms, some of the things that I would like to accomplish. I have seven issues that I want to accomplish, and then one theme to my presidency. One of the first is running a sustainable free paper program for our students. When I was student body president of Citrus College in Glendora, California, we ran a sustainable paper program that was successful. I would like to take that same program and establish it here. I feel like our students spend enough on fees across the board that we shouldn't have at least some sort of type of free printing for our students. I want to promote good health and well-being, and that's going to be through a Fit Cats initiative. The Fit Cats initiative was designed by my campaign team and I. And we would like to advocate for the campus to reduce its costs, its high costs on healthy, sustainable foods, therefore making it accessible for folks. Thank you, sir. I would also like to establish back to the cats. So I would like to promote good mental health. I want to establish a stronger relationship with campus health to provide more counselors for our students. I'm so happy for our counselors that are now in our cultural centers, but we still only have roughly 12 counselors serving 40,000 of the general population students and promoting good health. I would like a Boots to Books fund for our military veterans. I would like our institution to be a Hispanic serving institution. We are at the numbers that we need to be a Hispanic serving institution, so I would like to apply pressure on the administration to file for those federal fundings. I want to retain our folks of color through retaining our faculty and staff of color. I want our buildings on campus to be accessible to folks with disability, visible and non. And finally, I would like free HIV and STI testing. Thank you.
Now our third out of 4 ASUA student body president candidates.
See if I know how to-
You
I'll
can
just-
take the mic off.
Yeah, I think that's easier, the
Yeah.
height thing, yeah. All right. Hello, everyone. Hello, everybody. My name's Madeline Masters, and I'm running for student body president. I'm running on 3 main platforms. The first one is diversity. So currently, I serve as the diversity director for ASUA. I have been in ASUA for 3 years now, serving in different facets of the office. But as diversity director, it's allowed me to, one, gain closer relationships with all the cultural centers and resource centers here on campus, as well as ones not technically housed in Dean of Students. I've worked a lot with the Transfer Student Center, Disability Resource Center, and meeting and talking with all of these students, their directors, it's led me to believe that there's a lot more that needs to be done. Of course, we all know about the list of demands, and this year, through my position, I was able to create the ASUA Diversity Board, which houses students from the centers, as well as administration is looking to collaborate this semester, and to get people talking and getting talking about these demands, initiatives, as well as things that weren't listed in the list of demands that were created 2 years ago. And so that's one of the key things, a part of my platforms, is to really foster and make sure that there's tangible communication happening that's not gonna go away year in, year as we have new people coming in and out of ASUA. Secondly, I work in the Office of Institutional Equity, which focuses on Title IX, and so working there for over a year, I've got to see that there's a lot of miscommunications between departments that handle sexual assault prevention and Title IX initiatives. And so the second part of my platform is to kind of build that collaboration and create a campus-wide educational effort that is maximizing the resources from all of those departments. Instead of one department here, they're doing faculty, one department here, they're doing staff, and there's no communication between the two. And then lastly, I want to work on student engagement, and I want to do that in 3 different ways. One is to create an accessible way for students to promote ideas through social media platforms. Secondly, I want to update the ASUA and Club Resource website because it's atrocious if you've been on it. It's kind of difficult to navigate and it makes students not be able to find what they need. And then lastly, I want, oh my God, what's my last one? Oh, well, I guess I only have 2 right now. But if you want to know more, let me know and I'll talk to you.
Thank
you so much.
And now, last but not least, our 4th and final ASUA student body president candidate.
Okay. Hello, everyone. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. It really does mean a lot that you care about our platforms and what we want to accomplish in office. So my name is Anna Woolridge. I am currently a student body senator in ASUA. This is my 2nd year as a senator, and I'm serving as president of the Senate this year. And I just want to say first and foremost that I think the job of the student body president is to understand the pulse of campus, understand what is happening in all facets of campus, whether that be the cultural centers, Greek life, with transfer students, with the 600 plus clubs we have here on campus. And we really need to unite those voices to join the conversation on things that are happening and affecting all students, not just certain groups. And my tangible platforms are as follows. My first is to reduce the price of the Zona Zoo Pass. I don't think we need to be asking students for an athletic fee and an unreasonably high Zona Zoo Pass in order to partake in the Wildcat spirit. And the second is to expand our distribution hours of our campus pantry in order to fight food insecurity for those who have that here on campus. The third is to get ASUA access to the all-student listserv so that we fight that learning curve that ASUA seems to have where students don't know about ASUA until later in their college careers and they can get involved sooner and use these resources sooner. And third, I want to lower the price of textbooks by open sourcing them through the internet and working with those authors and those professors that we have here on campus. And another platform that I have is I want to mandate cultural competency training for all faculty so that we are able to create a more inclusive environment at the University of Arizona. So thank you so much for being here. Fair down.
Thank you. So next we'll take our questions from our cultural and resource centers. Yeah, whoever would like to start. Cool, and if we could have someone on deck and in the hole, just so we have this process, since we kind of run out of time, I want to make sure everyone answers. They will be asking their questions, and each candidate will have 1 minute to answer.
What is your experience working with underrepresented individuals, students, and how does your platform support these individuals?
We'll just, word of reference, we'll just start with the EVP and go down.
Cool. That's a wonderful question. So in 7th grade, I had my bar mitzvah, and I was able to, part of my bar mitzvah project was working with not only Jewish communities, but other communities around Tucson. So in 8th grade, we actually visited different religious centers around Tucson. And that actually first inspired me to really think about how other cultures interact. I mean, I grew up in a Jewish household. I knew about my cultures and customs, but when I visited an African-American church and I went to various different other places, that was really inspirational. So in terms of my platforms themselves, we need to be reaching underrepresented clubs here on campus much better. A lot of times, people, as I mentioned, they only have clubs, or clubs who come up to us, they only have a friend in ASUA, but a lot of times people from underrepresented groups maybe don't have a friend in ASUA. So making sure that we specifically reach out to those people in those clubs and say, hey, you can have club funding if you come to us.
Thank you. Time's up.
Thanks. Just pass the mic.
Yeah, passing the mic's just fine.
Hi, I'm Sean McCarthy again. Basically, I started in high school doing a thing called WARP, Warriors Against Racism and Prejudice. That's where I kind of started learning about underrepresented people and like marginalized students and things like that. So I've taken what I learned there, and you know, I enlisted in the Army when I was 17. I went to basic training before my freshman year in high school, or my freshman year in college, and we learned about equal opportunity and SHARP, sexual harassment training, and things like that. And so I've taken the things that I've learned there, where students normally wouldn't have the opportunities to, or just know, to get involved in ASUA. You know, I was fortunate enough to hear about freshman class council coming into my freshman year. And thankfully to that, that's why I'm here in ASUA today. So my programs target, you know, the entirety of the freshman class coming in, you know, especially that Next Steps program. Gives everybody the opportunity to learn what's available to them and what they can take advantage of in ASUA, you know. It's not just certain people that go out to certain events and get these things that are targeted. Everybody has the chance to, you know, learn what they can do, learn what is available to them through ASUA and take advantage of those resources that they have, so.
Thank you.
Hi, so when it comes to talking about underrepresented groups, especially on campus, I want to focus a little bit on my experience over the past year. So as I stated, I'm currently a senator, and I actually ran on a platform of trying to get more people involved in ASUA and diversity and inclusion. So that's brought me into a lot of places to think about what it means to get underrepresented groups more represented in ASUA. So one thing that I know I've seen is specifically like USFC organizations on campus. I would really like to see those more represented in our student government. I also, cultural centers in general, my platforms relate, specifically to trying to get more people involved in ASUA by reaching out to these underrepresented groups and hopefully getting them positions in ASUA, whether those be elected or whether those be directorships. And also looking at looking at the different identities, particularly with my third platform. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Stefano again. So when I was first exposed to working with other underrepresented folks, I was actually student body vice president at my high school in Ontario, California. I don't know if anyone remembers during the Bush administration, Bush Jr., that is, because I'm not that old. There was the walkouts in Southern California. Did anyone hear about this? So I remember at first being confused about the walkouts because I was friends with administrators on campus, and they were like, "We're losing a lot of federal funding by these students walking out." And then so after reaching out to my fellow students, because I was student body vice president, I did run unopposed. I put that out there. I got to learn more about cultural competency at a young age. And that was back in 2005, and it is now 2018, and that has been a part of who I am as a student leader since I've been here since 3 years ago. And I think my platforms definitely speak for themselves on how they are going to support marginalized folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like him, I grew up Jewish, and a big part of my religion has just been kind of giving back to people who are less fortunate. So and when I was having my bar mitzvah in 7th grade too, I worked a lot with the homeless people and at food banks and doing food drives and that kind of stuff. And then as I got into high school, I was a big brother to a kid at a local elementary school and tried to overcome a language barrier to help teach him to read. And also being a student council in high school, just I had the opportunity to sit on different diversity initiatives. And the thing at Arizona, I think I just try to empower students to give them a voice, not just on campus, but try to get people kind of around the country seeing what we're doing here and seeing all the great things that we can do as students at Arizona and to try to come up with solutions regarding diversity and inclusion.
Thank you.
All right, y'all, Madeline back again. And my other one was surveys. That was my last part of my platform. But back to this question, I finally remembered. So as a woman of color, I have my own ways that I navigate the University of Arizona, and I have my own personal stories, and that's kind of the perspective I take when I look at student government and the issues we need to tackle. As well as far as like other underrepresented groups on campus, whether it be race, religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, we can go on a long list of identities, but it's about getting those conversations going and creating those relationships, because you never know until you talk to someone. My father always said that don't give people what they want, or don't give people what you think they want, give them what they want. So you have to talk with them. So over the past year, I've been going to different organizations, doing different trainings with the ISRC. I just got back from DC working with the pro-Israel conflict as an African-American student retreat, and just getting involved and talking with different students from different centers and getting their input on how they can best have their issues addressed.
Thank you.
So I think my first experiences with cultural competency and whatnot date back to when I was younger. I grew up here in Tucson, Arizona, so I went to a high school that was predominantly Hispanic, and I, through that, have had to recognize some of my privilege and learn more about that. And this past school year in August, I was able to learn even more about that at the University of Arizona's diversity retreat. And campus, I think it's important that we, as ASUA and as cultural centers, communicate, because I think there's a lot of unknown in that space between us. And I think just by attending each other's events, talking to each other, interacting and connecting, we can close a lot of that gap and give each other what we need here on campus. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we can have our next question.
Hi, my name is Victoria Thomas, and this question is from the Native American Student Affairs, and this is, how can ASU advocate for the acknowledgement of the ancestral lands of the Tohono O'odham people in which the UofA currently resides upon?
Definitely.
Is this for all the candidates or specific? Okay, all the candidates, go for it.
Okay, that's a wonderful question. And we have to really, I think as student leaders, I think all of us here have the responsibility to think about what different cultures consider to be their priority. And certainly, as student leaders, I would say to you that our responsibility is to talk to administration. I think as student government, you are sort of the liaison between students and president, right? Dr. Robbins might not know, she might know about these issues, or administration, and they might just sort of push it to the side. But if student leaders, in conjunction with other students at the University of Arizona, talk to them and really get involved in these conversations, I think really that's the best way, creating that dialogue in that sense. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Sean again. Honestly, to answer your question, I don't think ASUA has done anything to recognize that U of A is built on tribal lands. I myself didn't know as a student until a couple weeks ago. I started the search for the next executive director of Res Life, and we have someone from your cultural center that is sitting on that, and she brought that up, and we had some of us didn't even know. So I think one thing that is important about that is that, one, we need to recognize it ourselves. So now that that we do know about it, like I said, I just learned about it a couple weeks ago. I didn't research that before I came to the University of Arizona or anything like that. It wasn't something that was made public to me in orientation or anything like that. So I think it's just raising awareness, letting people know and finding ways that we can appreciate that and make sure that the university is appreciating that on its own and that most of our students are aware that we are on tribal land.
Thank you.
Hi. I pretty distinctly remember whenever I first found out that the University of Arizona was on tribal land. It was at the University of Arizona Diversity Symposium that we had 2 semesters ago. A woman by the name of Linda mentioned that. And I just remember being so shocked that after spending an entire year at the University of Arizona, being a student leader, that I had never heard that the University of Arizona stands on tribal land. So I would have to agree with what already has been said, that we need to start talking about the fact that this has happened. We need to recognize the structural implications of what it means that the University of Arizona is on tribal lands and no one is talking about it. And then above that, we need to start talking to your cultural center, talking to people from this descent to see what we can do about it. It's not like what someone thinks that you want, but it's what you actually want. And so to talk to you and see what steps should be taken, I think is the first step. So thank you.
Thank you.
So the University of in a unique place, considering its proximity to the border, its proximity to native reservations. I think one way that we can honor the folks of the Tohono O'odham land is which the university sits on, is that one thing that I would like to do as president is offer, so currently we have someone doing a fabulous job, Nadalyn, representing the cultures and diversity to the cabinet, but I would like to see representation from these cultures actually sit at the table in the cabinet. It's one thing to have one person's voice speak for many, but it's another thing to have those people sitting at the table helping you stay cognizant of the issues that we face. So I had the privilege of working with the Native American students because I used to work in the office, and I continue to educate myself, and I learn things about our Indigenous students every day, and it's something that I take great pride in. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be honest, this is the first I've heard that the University of Arizona is on tribal land, and so what that tells me is that we need to raise more awareness on the issue, making sure students know and appreciate the fact and appreciate the culture in which we're living right now. And I think we have to ask ourselves if we're doing enough to provide scholarships and opportunities for those students that we do. Sorry, I can't remember what I was going to say.
Thank you.
I think the first part of it is just is acknowledging the fact that we are here and we're on tribal lands, first and foremost at the University of Arizona. That's where it begins. That's the first step in any initiative moving forward. Like Stefano said, I have been working as the diversity director, and it's more than just saying that we do it. So one of the things that I've been trying to work on last semester is getting tribal flags in the bookstore. It represents all the students, where every student comes from on campus, but tribal flags are not there. They're not represented. This year I serve as a resident assistant for Kaibab Huachuca, and meeting with students who live in the O'odham Key Wing and hearing about what it means to talk about tribal lands and the significance it is to them is making sure administration hears that and that they hear the importance of what that means to acknowledge the fact that we are on Tohono O'odham land. And I think that's the first and foremost. And I think with my platforms that I'm working on, and Stefano has talked about it, the things that I've done in the past, that this is something that's at the forefront of something I'm working on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is definitely something that we can see that a lot of students aren't aware of. And something that we can do to raise awareness of this is to turn that question back on you all and ask you how we can best do that for you. One of my biggest values in this campaign is that I don't want to be your voice. I want to give you a voice. I want to build you up to speak. And I can't know everything about every single cultural center. I can't know everything about every single culture. I have so much to learn. And I just think that by communicating, we can help one another spread awareness that we are on tribal land.
Thank you. And our next question.
Hi, my name is Lex. I go by they, them, or he, him pronouns. I'm a Cutie Talk facilitator, which is a queer and trans people of color discussion group on campus. And the question that we had from our students was, what will you do to bring awareness to the administration about their failure to retain students who identify as queer or trans people of color? Because over the last, I'm a junior, I've been here for 2 years. I've had maybe 6 friends who all identify as queer or trans, and they're probably people of color that have dropped out, and that's pretty awful, and like, the retention of the university is pretty awful. So just want to know what you want to do.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a really important issue. I think the retention rates, certainly of people who identify as LGBTQ plus and people of color for sure, is something the administration, the university needs to focus on. So as an executive through ASUA, and especially my position with clubs, I think clubs are a wonderful way to help try to keep folks of all identities on campus. When you find a club or an organization that you can associate with or belong with or really just connect with, you're much more likely to stay on campus. So I think that's really important. As you know, we have freshmen coming in, being able to connect them with organizations and identities that they align with, whether that's Greek life or whether that's different clubs, whatever it may be, I think that's really important and something that we can really work on to help retain students here at the UofA.
Thank you.
Hi, Sean again. So I'm sure, I've also heard about Cutie Pop. I also am an RA in Hopi Graham Greenlee right now, and my GCD is actually Suksavan Kiavorbooth. He's one of the student leaders that helps lead the discussions for Cutie Pop. And basically, I had a resident who identifies as queer and is a person of color, and he came up to me one day and actually was discussing whether he wanted to drop out or not. And so I think the importance with retention especially is, talking and especially with my program, one of my platforms is getting a liaison between ASUA and Res Life, making sure we get flyering about programs like that, things that people know that's available. This resident had no idea that was an option. I didn't even know that was an option. And thanks to my GCD, he told me about that, and I was able to spread that to my resident. He's still here, and he was considering dropping out within that semester, and that was last semester. So I think just working to get awareness around and making sure that resource is known to students is what's most important right now.
Thank you.
Hello. So I think for my first point when it comes to this is that more faculty, staff, and students should be safe zone trained and trained in what it means to communicate with people that do identify in the LGBTQ community. I don't know how we can expect people to succeed on our campus if their peers and their professors won't even call them by their correct pronouns. That can be really damaging to a person. And second, I think we should raise awareness of Pride Alliance and the LGBTQ Resource Center. Those are such amazing resources that people have, and it builds a community, and people feel less alone, and they are more likely to succeed when they have that community, and they know that they are not by themselves, and in no way are they isolated. And so those are the 2 steps that I would suggest we take in order to better support our LGBTQ plus students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Lex. So I think that Lex brings up a really important question, and I know I'm preaching to the choir because the folks that are sitting in front of me, y'all are at the forefront of this battle and fighting for resources for our students. But serving our queer and trans folks and two-spirited folks of color and the administration not being there for them is only one example of how the administration is failing our students. I think that the student government needs to be a vehicle for change. And by that, I mean that we need to be the vehicle talking about these things. How often do our Senate and our organizations that are ran through ASUA talk about queer and trans folks of color or know what two-spirited means? So I think the cultural competency, yes, the pressure has to be put on the administration, but also has to come back on how well we are perceiving these issues on campus. Thank you.
Thank you.
As student body president, I just would hate the idea of anyone thinking that they're lonely or lost or anything like that. So just providing the resources to them, there's extra, I know Stefano was touching on it as well, just providing more counselors to students, making sure people know that there are people here for you, people here that want to help you. And I think it goes back to my main point of mental health and trying to get people meditating and really trying to make people happy, and just really being here for students. So that's my answer for that.
Thank you.
I think to answer your question, when we talk about retention rates, we have to ask those questions. Why are queer, trans students of color dropping out? Why do they not feel like this is a safe space for them? Why do they not feel that this university is welcoming them with open arms? And once we answer that question is how we can start developing initiatives to answer and stop that from happening. And so I think that begins, one of the unique things about this campaign that's happening right now is it's happening at the same time as a strategic plan for the entire university. Dr. Robbins is sitting down and he's having focus groups with students, and I've been in one, not much color, not much any diversity in those strategic plannings. So who's telling him what the university should look like in 5 to 10 years? Not the real students here on campus, not the students who direly need the structure and these changes to take place here. So I think that it's connecting, and as student government, bringing those voices to the table and making sure that we're asking those tough questions to administration when they're making these plans. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so unfortunately, this is an issue we have to talk about, and that cross-sectionality can impose a really big burden on a lot of students. So I think we need to ask ourselves not only why are these students dropping out and not being retained, but when is this happening? Is there a moment that we can catch them and change that for them? Is there a moment that we can get them involved, that we can provide them with some resources? And I think that starts with paying attention to the issue, and not only paying attention, but doing something about it, putting funding towards that, academic support, emotional support, CAPS, anything like that. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll have our next question.
Hi, I'm from the WRC, and my question's for all of you, and the question is, how are you specifically going to support sexual assault prevention year-round, rather than just during the month of April?
Thank you for that question.
That's a wonderful question. So sexual assault is a pervasive issue all across campuses in the United States of America, and it's really on all of us to prevent that. So certainly, you mentioned in the month of April, we have our I Will Week. I think that's a good start. We've actually only been doing it for 3 years, which is ridiculous. We should continue to do that, expand it. But how we can specifically make that a year-long effort, first of all, I think we need to really go to Greek life. I think that's one of our, that's a big audience, right? So going to each one of the fraternities, each one of the sororities, and really educating them on sexual assault prevention, awareness, etc. Two, I really think in terms of the executive branch, making sure that every single sort of club has a policy, a sexual assault policy within their bylaws or their constitution that outlines what happens when sexual assault occurs or a report is made. I think that's incredibly important and certainly something I would look forward to working on as Executive Vice President.
Thank you.
Hi. So, again, I think it's just important, programming. Get a lot of people out there. Right now, I'm kind of stressed right now. Not gonna lie, I'm kind of stuttering a lot just because I'm an RA. I'm missing my own program right now, which is your speak directors. They're there right now. They're giving a cute or creepy talk on, healthy relationships. And, it's just about that, trying to get the programs out there, getting people aware, I think Matt hit it right on the nail, getting in Greek life. I rushed this semester. And I'm a pledge in a fraternity now. And when we were getting our orientation thing before Rush, they laughed through a sexual harassment talk, a presentation. So that was something I wasn't comfortable with. It was definitely brought up. So I think it's definitely something that we need to educate people about. We need to target certain areas on campus that definitely need that education. They need programs like that. They need people to bring down the hammer when they're not listening. So I think that's most important, and just, again, raising awareness, especially in the dorms, everywhere where people are feeding through campus, so.
Thank you.
So right now I'm currently sitting on the Iowa Week Planning Board, and while looking through like the volunteer trainings and things like that, I've personally learned so much about how to report a sexual assault, how to talk to a friend of yours if they confide in you that they have been a victim of sexual assault. And I think this is something that should be more prevalent on our campus. It should be in more trainings. I'm also a member of Greek Life, and I know last year we had 2 interns from Speak come and talk to us, and I personally found it very beneficial. I'd like to see that happen more often. I'd also like to see it happen in fraternities. I'd like to see it happen in a wider range of clubs, because this is such an important issue that we have here and so prevalent on our college campuses, and that needs to be eradicated. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
I think first and foremost, we have to not be afraid of these conversations. And it can't just be about going to Greek Life, because we have programming in Greek Life. Jamie, I've seen one of your presentations, and the folks in Greek Life laugh or throw papers or make a joke out of it. It's a mockery to them. So the education has to come on ourselves. When we are educated about these what is taboo conversations, then we can educate the folks that are around us. We also have to be, to stay cognizant, if we don't know the answer, we have to go and seek the answers. And so, I lost my train of thought, but I think this is a part of cultural competency, and it's conversations and understanding what rape culture looks like and preventing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think sexual assault awareness is a great place to start, but I think where we fail as a society is to teach our nation's young people and kind of throughout your education just about sex. We refuse to give an education about sexual health and sex as a kind of an act of intimacy, an act of love, and therefore, guys grow up learning about sex through porn, and like that is their sexual education. And how the level of awareness we can raise, but in actually how we treat the subject of sex. So I think we need to start having sexual health classes and awareness on that issue too, because I think that could work wonders for reducing STDs on campus. And I think that would also be a great place to start.
Thank you.
I think it's a multi-facet effort. I think that with a university that has over 40,000 students, it shouldn't rest on the backs of Speak and organizations in the WRC to educate the entire university. That is a fault on administration. That is something that, as administration, there should be a campus-wide educational effort starting day one when you step on this campus, when you go through orientation, when RAs are interacting with the people that live in their halls, when students are having their first day of classes, when they're interacting with their professor the first time. It is a cultural change happening on campus, and it's a day one start, and that's continuing those conversations with administration and making sure that this is something that any student who calls himself a Wildcat is aware of what to do, where to go, and who to interact with on campus and how to conduct themselves as a Wildcat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is $1 million question, and I think not only do we need to raise awareness and make it not so taboo to report, but we also need to create a culture that makes sexual assault and things of the like not the norm, and something that people and people's peers stand up and say, that's not okay, that's not what we're doing here. People in Greek Life and people in any other organization for that matter. And I think that starts with us as student leaders standing up and saying that's not okay. When you see something on social media, when you see something in real life happening, that's not okay. So thank you.
Thank you. And our next question.
Hi, my name is Megan. I'm in Force, and I have a question on behalf of the WRC. And my question is, what does community collaboration with the centers look like for you, so that it's not just ASUA putting work and labor on marginalized students to advance ASUA members' agendas? And this is a question for all of you.
Thank you for the question.
Definitely.
That was on behalf of Speak.
Okay. Thanks, Megan. Megan and I actually went to elementary school together, so we go back a long time, and that is a wonderful question. But I think really, Megan hit the nail on the head. Right now, we're sort of imposing all of the work to be on the cultural centers, and that really should not be the case. So I think really what we need to do as ASUA, we ought to be here as representatives to really listen to folks from all around campus. I think there's sort of this divide between cultural centers and ASUA where it's just very separate, but I think anyone from any cultural center or speak or WRC or any one of our programs and services should be able to go to the student body president or executive vice president or any leader in ASUA and tell them their concerns, and immediate action has to be taken, right? We can't wait 1 week, 2 week, whatever it is. I think having that communication is really important. But yes, definitely. Thanks.
Thank you.
Again, you couldn't be more right. We do kind of put it on, your guys' cultural center leaders just to attack the problem. And it's kind of how we think that we're disseminating the information or disseminating tasks, But I also think it's important, one of my platforms is that ASUA strategic plan. And that's where, I want students to come and tell me what's going on, what's wrong with them. So, and then on top of that, getting that new mission statement, I want it to be fluid. I want to make goals, either semesterly, monthly, something like that, where each program and service, you can be doing your programs and services and accomplishing goals, having programs and things like that, but I want them to work towards something, And whether one of the themes that month be recognizing students on campus, something like that. We get that job as RAs all the time. They want us to theme around this, and, as long as we're within that circle and doing a program involving it, I think that's something, the creativity level in ASUA that we could use to our advantage, to represent other students and, give people the awareness that they need. It's honestly, in my opinion, the best way to get it out there, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a very important question, and I'm glad that you asked it. I think as student representatives, our job would be to open the window and to be listeners. So it's not our job to come up with ideas and pass them down to you and say, hey, do this. It's our job to listen to what you want to see happen, to be able, anyone from any cultural center or really anywhere on campus, to be able to walk into the ASUA office and say, this is an issue that I see, let's work together and let's fix this. And so it definitely shouldn't be like a one-sided all on you guys, but you guys have the right to see the things that you want to see changed in our student government and in our campus at large changed. And so I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you bring up a very important issue, that the education cannot just be on the backs of folks of color or marginalized folks. It has to take it's the responsibility of allies to take on some of the work. And I've done this. This is now my third time running for executive office for ASUA, and I have yet to serve a position in ASUA, but every year I come back and I speak about this. As an ally to these communities, I put the education and the work on myself. As being one of the authors to the original group of the list of demands, I recognize that there is obviously a long list of things that need to be done, and why folks are uncomfortable in going to the ASUA is because when folks from the centers go to have a seat at the table in ASUA, they are shunned for their liberal views. They are shunned and not given positions or appointed to ASUA so that they can speak about these issues. So again, I think we have to take the responsibility onto ourselves and open up the doors to the student government for many folks, not just folks from one particular group.
Thank you.
The biggest thing for me, right off the bat, I'm just going to try to expand my perspective. So I want to be a great listener. And that's not necessarily having people having an open door. I want to come to your cultural center. I want to listen to you. I'll come to you so I can expand my viewpoint. And then once I hear kind of where you're coming from, your perspective, what you need to get done, that's at that point as a leader, I will take it on myself to try to get that done and be a force for you all.
Thank you.
I think the first part is listening, but as was said a lot, if all I'm doing is listening, then you're doing all the talking, and then the work is still on you to tell me everything. And I think the key part of this is self-education. And I think it's on the backs of ASUA and anyone who's trying to truly represent the students of this community to learn and educate themselves on these issues so that they're not coming in empty-minded, oh, well, can you tell me what that means again? Oh, is that really? Wait, is that true? Like, education it on yourself and taking it on ourselves as student leaders and student government to truly represent you all. And I think one of the best things is that I can share as a personal story is related to DACA. I was never exposed to it. I went to my first DACA protest, and then I kid you not, 2 weeks ago, I signed up for a training, went to a training, learned about the policies, and now I can speak knowledgeably and be a true ally for the organization. And that's what I plan to do with all of the other marginalized identities on campus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so like I said, I've been a senator for the last 2 years, and I think the most successful and beneficial and impactful events and projects that we ever do involve the cultural centers or USFC. And I think there can be so much more of that, not just in Senate, but in other parts of the office. And if it's only the student body president going to these events, listening, trying to push some agenda, and even help you push your agendas, then we're failing. It needs to be multiple people in ASUA from across different departments, multiple people in cultural centers coming to our events as well. We need to really mold together and work together if we're going to accomplish what we want to accomplish and all that we're talking about here today. Thank you.
Thank you. And then our next question.
Hello, I'm Morgan Hom. I'm with the Apostle Board of Directors, Asian Pacific American Student Affairs. And so I was just wondering about residential life and the diversity about it. I was wondering if the list of demands you've heard about the learning living communities, wherein like members of a community or a culture are able to have residents together, and so it makes transition easier for new students or those living in the dorms, and what your opinion is on that and how you would implement such. And that's all.
Definitely. That's a wonderful question, and I think it goes back to our discussion about retention a little bit earlier. What happened, or what has happened within the past couple of months, year, with the Black community in the stadium dorm has been an absolute travesty, and it really shows how administration is completely ignorant to the issues and problems of students here. So that situation should never, ever, ever happen. But yes, living learning communities are absolutely vital to retention, to underrepresented folks, and so as a person of privilege, as someone who's white, I see white people all around me all the time, but if you're from an underrepresented group, you might not see someone who's like you. So living in a dorm with people who are of your race or sexual orientation or whatever the case may be is incredibly vital. So expanding these programs, I think, is a wonderful idea, and not kicking them out to build new football stadium renovations, whatever, is also paramount as well. So thanks for your question.
Thank you.
All right, so again, as someone involved in res life, I can speak to kind of on both sides. LLCs, they're growing, they're a great thing. They're working on building more, I can tell you that. There's about 2 more coming next year, I believe. And on top of that, I've also seen how, one, those largely benefit students. 2, I've also seen how not being a part of an LLC here can also benefit the hall. I've seen a lot of diversity in my hall specifically. I don't live in a specific learning living community, but I have students from all different walks of life coming into my hall, and I've never seen cohesion like that. I've been to basic training where guys come from all around the country of different color, and it was amazing. I used what I learned there to see how I can build a hall that I want to see. What I messed up on in basic training, meeting all these new people that I can prevent from them making the mistakes on. So yeah, I love the living learning communities. I've been there. I've heard a lot of great things from them from people, and I think it's a great way to keep people keep retention rates up. But I also think it's a good idea just to spread the awareness of people on how they can just interact.
Thank you.
So I definitely think living learning communities are a wonderful resource that we have at the University of Arizona. It's a great way to build community, and as we talked about earlier, it's a great way to build that retention so that people feel that they have a community with them. And I definitely think if I were lucky enough to fill the role of administrative vice president, I would voice that to the administration as much as humanly possible, because they do exist, but they need more support, they need more resources. And as Matt talked about recently, what happened with the living learning community in the stadium dorm was just so sad and should never happen again. And so if I were lucky enough to be administrative vice president, I would do everything in my power to voice support for those if students wanted to participate in a living learning community to the administration.
Thank you.
The relationship between ASUA and Res Life needs to be strengthened. And one way that we can do that is let's use today as an example. The RHA had their meeting at the same time that this forum is happening. If there was a stronger relationship, the RHA should have been present at this meeting so that they could be engaged. Currently, right now, Res Life is not engaged in this process. They don't want flyers up. They won't let us talk to their hall councils. We can go to the RHA, but this is a part of the problem. If there is more student engagement in these decisions, and if there's more student engagement in these types of events, so that Residence Life has a seat at the table talking about how to strengthen things like the live-in communities. The live-in communities are essential to the productivity and the success of those students. So if we had more students sitting at the table, we wouldn't see things like what's going on in the stadium dorm. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I think this kind of goes back to one of my kind of core principles, and that's kind of tackling this idea of loneliness in college. And I want students to have the resources to be able to come together, and I think this kind of comes back to my piece of trying to establish meditation centers around campus and trying to give people resources to be happy and to find fulfillment and to find kind of joy in other people's presence. That's.
Thank you.
Hey, bed buddy. Me and her, we went to a conference together. It's a long story. But to answer your question, Morgan, I think it's twofold, and I'm going to touch on a little bit of what Sean mentioned. The LLCs are a retention program. I see it firsthand with the students I talk to who are in the Black Living Learning community at ASUA, that if it wasn't for that program, they maybe wouldn't have stayed at the university. It was a way for them to find home, find their community, and connect with people who could relate with them. But the sad reality is we go to a PWI, and not all students who identify as that can live in that same hall. So I think that comes into a big question between the relationship between ASUA and student government, and making sure RAs are trained to ensure that each one of their halls is a community where anyone that living there feels safe. And there's diversity within all these communities, and I hear it also all the time that people wish that they could live in the living learning community because they hate living in their hall. And so I think the LLCs are important and they're crucial, they need to stay, but it's also expanding and asking that big picture question and making sure that all students of all identities are welcome on campus.
Thank you.
So I was an RA last year in Kaibab Huachuca, and I got to see firsthand the impact that the O'odham Key Wing had. So not only was it super beneficial for all the students that lived in that hall, it was beneficial for our entire building. We all got to learn so much about the culture and their practices, and even partake in things like eating different kinds of foods that we had never had. So I think this is a great way to retain students and also educate students that wouldn't otherwise know about these different cultures and sexual orientations and races, and these halls should always, this should go without being said, be treated with the utmost respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question.
Hi, y'all. My name is Sabrina Echeverry. I use she, her pronouns. I am one of the co-directors for Pride Alliance, and I'm representing the LGBTQ Resource Center. So our question is, we talk a lot about cultural competency, and oftentimes into that conversation brings Safe Zone, which is a program that is under the LGBTQ Resource Center. But a lot of the weight goes to Safe Zone, right? And a program that is not really well funded and well taken care of by our university. So aside from participating in Safe Zone training, which is often what people come to as a good way to build cultural competency, what are other ways that you guys intend on making ASUA a more inclusive and welcoming space for LGBTQ+ students?
Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Sabrina. So as Sabrina knows, Senate recently passed funding for a conference that Pride was going to, but there are certain individuals in Senate that did not conduct themselves in the proper way, to say the least. So I think in terms of being the executive vice president, I will make sure that every single senator is not only Safe Zone trained, but if they say something out of line, if they're doing something, maybe they're not even aware of the microaggression they're committing, I will pull them aside immediately and talk to them before the year even starts. I think that's something that's really important because as student leaders, as Senate, not only do we pass funding, but we pass resolutions. We have the ability to really impact this campus. So when we have people who make ignorant comments on our live stream on Facebook that 2 people watch, it doesn't matter if 2 people are watching it because you were there, and really that should never happen again. So I can promise you that will never happen again. So thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, so correct me if I'm wrong on this. We tried to implement safe zones-wide training in ASUA this year, and it's not, you can't do that. You can't mandate that people take that safe zone training. So, you know, it's not something we can exactly do, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was the issue. So I honestly, again, like Matt said, lead by example for one. You know, take those people aside that need the education. I haven't been through safe zone trained yet, but you know, I've been through equal opportunity training in the military, which is, you know, their version of that. And you know, they give you education on everything that you have to go through, or just the different identities that you would probably meet. And definitely not all of them, but you know, that's where I got my awareness of things from. And I had no idea how ignorant I was at the time. And so just definitely opening experiences like that, and yeah, stating your expectations at the beginning of the year. I work under Lowe right now, the administrative vice president, and he has completely changed me throughout the year. You know, the way he dances around topics like this, and he, you know, the way he glides himself through these things, it's inspired me. You know, I want to be exactly like him, and he's extremely good at it.
Thank you.
So I think the first step when it comes to making ASUA, in particular the administrative branch, which is the role that I'm running for right now, more inclusive to the LGBTQ+ community is starting from like the hiring of the directors. People that are in these positions of power in ASUA need to know what it means to respect someone's pronouns, need to know what it means to be respectful to people that identify as LGBTQ+. And so I think that currently is a question in the interviews whenever people are, or when the current administrative vice president is hiring directors. And I think there should be serious stock put in that question, and it should be really a make or break factor. Second of all, I think we should be self-policing between myself, the directors, and the people that make up all of the different programs. Yeah, if someone says something incorrectly, correct them. Be respectful about it, but let them know that what they're doing is not okay and is not acceptable in ASUA and is not acceptable at the University of Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think one thing that we can do is promoting intersectional work. And so if we have our student government not obligated to go to places, but encouraged to go to the cultural centers. One thing that I would like to do is with the cabinet, I would like to do alternative breaks in the cultural centers. And what that is if we do spoken word, or we're doodling, or we're pop culture trivia, so alternative breaks, so we're not just working in the offices, that we're actually going into the centers and we're having some fun with folks. Mandating safe zone training just sounds problematic. It has to come from within, that you want to support these communities. And the way that we are gonna do that is that you have to not be ashamed of having those conversations and using your pronouns in your introductions.
Thank you.
I think the best time to kind of address these issues and raise awareness is when people kind of first step on campus. So just kind of addressing when people step on the campus as freshmen, kind of raising awareness on these certain issues and how to conduct yourself, and how to, the various kind of walks of life and types of people they're gonna meet throughout their time here. I think that's a great opportunity to help kind of raise awareness on these issues.
Thank you.
Hey, Sabrina. I think one of the things that gets confused, especially a lot of times with ASUA, is thinking that safe zone training is a ED, all of the above answer to cultural competency. There's a lot, if there was one training that did all of cultural competency, we'd be here for weeks, you know? And I think that's starting with ASUA. We have a retreat at the beginning of the year where all ASUA newly hired faculty, or all the student workers sit down for a training, and we fill out our W-2s, we do all the paperwork side of it, aspect of training. And I think one part of it is the safe zone training, but then it's also us as students going to the experts. There are faculty and staff here on campus who have been trained and do their life's work around cultural competency in all aspects. We had Sherrod come for the beginning of the retreat this year, and he kind of did a speech, but I would love to see more hands-on, in-depth cultural competency training in all aspects of it, not just at the beginning of the year, but throughout.
Thank you.
Yeah, so as Madeline was alluding to, funny enough, we kind of had the same idea. One of the few times that ASUA is all together as a whole is the beginning of the year at the ASUA retreat. And I think that safe zone training should be a part of that, and I think that it should be more interactive, and it should be an acceptable place to ask questions and have those questions answered. And we also need to not be afraid to address that throughout the year. We all need to stay informed and be respectful to those that we're working with, and just so we can achieve what we want to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you. And due to time, this will be our last question. Thank you.
Hello all, my name is Mira. I'm a DACA recipient and I'm also a member of the ISRC here on campus. DACA and undocumented students have been fighting a lot for our own needs recently, such as making the university take a stand against enforcement of our communities, which includes Border Patrol being on campus, and especially fighting for financial assistance for the last 2 years. My question to the candidates is, what concrete long-term action steps beyond raising awareness would you take as ASUA leaders to make more financial access to DACA and undocumented students on this campus and also take a stand with us?
Thank you so much.
Go for it.
Okay. You know, really, this is something that we all, right, as you said, raise awareness, but that's not enough. So I think the first thing is to really have a numerous amount of scholarships that are available for DACA recipients. You have people in Arizona who are trying to end DACA. You have people, obviously, in our federal government who are trying to end DACA. So showing, as a university and as administration, to provide scholarships for DACA recipients like yourself. And I think it really also has to come from the president. Dr. Robbins, he had a statement when, you know, back a few months ago, but that's not enough to just have a statement. He really needs to put in an actual action plan. So I think all of us in this room can agree that we will pressure him to put out like an actual itemized list of what he will do as president. And I think as student leaders, I know I will always stand with DACA students, but it really needs to come from Dr. Robbins and really as soon as possible.
Thank you.
I think, again, one of the main points is, yeah, we can say awareness all day. I think another thing that's important is, you know, advocating on behalf of the DACA students and the University of Arizona as a whole, hitting ABOR hard, you know, talk to them, tell them what's going on, give them, you know, show a sign of, you know, a sign of strength university-wide. If they come here again, you know, get everybody there, you know, show all the people that are supporting this here at this university, showing them that we care. Other than that, you know, talking with the executives at the university, you know, trying to make that show of force, you know, showing them that on behalf of the entire student body, as the student body advocates, as the representatives that are trying to make this happen, you know, giving them, again, the reasons why we're fighting for it, you know, giving them the statistics, the amount of students this is affecting, the reasons this is affecting them, you know, how we can help them. And again, fighting for, you know, funding, scholarships, anything like that to keep those students on campus and make sure that they're, you know, rightfully advocated for.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming here and asking this question. First, I definitely think we need to work on making scholarships for DACA students. There's so many laws and restrictions in place that make it so difficult for DACA students to just get an education, which is your right, and that's ridiculous. So we should do everything we can as student leaders to get those scholarships. But the University of Arizona doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's not just DACA students here on campus. We're fighting a national battle about DACA. And I think what we can do is whenever bills or laws are proposed in either our national government or in our state government, to take advantage of things like advocates, to go down to the Capitol and make our voices heard, to talk about the fact that we stand with DACA students, and to put pressure on our administration, but not just on our administration, on state and federal governments, to stand with DACA students to help you get an education and to help you stay in our country. So thank you so much.
Last semester, we had a larger amount of DACA students than we do this semester. So it's important to protect the number of students that we have and their identity, but it's also important to recognize that this institution made a promise to those students, and they have not fulfilled that promise. It's also important to recognize that the student government has also made that promise. I challenge the folks that I'm sitting next to that are currently in the student government that had not done any specific action to uphold that promise that they made to DACA students. But it is not just on the students that I'm sitting with or the students in student government. It is about the administration. Our president made a promise, and our student body president and our student leaders are not holding their promise to the students and keeping the president of this institution accountable to the promise that they made. We need to prioritize tuition dollars. Instead of spending $50,000 to write Arizona and paint on Cherry Street, let's use that $50,000 to fund scholarships for our DACA students. Where are the folks that I'm sitting beside? Where were they? Madeline was there. Where are they when we do the marches? Where is the student government when we're marching? Where is the student government when the regents are having a meeting and I'm outside with the DACA recipients and they're sitting inside? It is this slow progression and politeness that is making our student government slowly progressing. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. We try to keep the 1 minute to be fair to everybody. Just a reminder. Everyone should have 1 minute.
I think it, like Stefano was saying, it goes back to accountability, holding our leaders accountable, holding the president of the university accountable, state legislators, board of regents, and then even on the national level, accountable and fighting for the rights of these students to be here and to have the right to an education.
Thank you.
I think the first part of it is education. Stefano's touched on it a little bit, but that self-education, making sure more students on campus are aware and know what DACA even means and what does it mean to be a DACA recipient and what does it mean, how does that navigate them and the university. And then I think the second part of that is one, holding administration accountable and making sure that scholarships are great, but scholarships fluctuate with money. We need permanent funding that's here every year for DACA. This is something that needs to happen. And on top of that, it's the ISRC, making sure that they're properly funded. They're not squeezing in a room with a microwave and a coffee pot, and that they have an actual space for students to feel safe and feel welcome here on campus. And I think that's one, is in student government. Two, it's administration, and three, it's educating every student that's here on campus. And that goes to a part of the training that I mentioned when I was answering Sabrina's question. Thank you.
Thank you.
So first and foremost, I think we need to work extremely hard to lock down that private funding for DACA students. And I think in order to do that, we need to have a unified voice in all of this. So we need to be communicating with all of you as to what our united voice is going to be when we go and speak to the Arizona Board of Regents, when we go to Cats at the Capitol, when we're speaking to administration. And we need to bring you all into those conversations with us, into those meetings, and make your voices heard as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank everyone for attending this. I really appreciate the sort of collaboration that the resource and cultural centers have done for us. They did have extra questions that we did not have time for, and during the EVP and AVP debate and the presidential debate, I will ensure that those questions are asked to those students. So there'll be a question coming from me on behalf of them. So I really appreciate everyone who attended, everybody in here. Thank you so much for coming. This is probably like the only time, the only event we have to see like the primary candidates. So do remember that voting is next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. It's online on elections.asua.arizona.edu. So I would really like to thank everybody for the flexibility of our time, all your questions. We really do appreciate this collaboration and this fostering of this relationship that we're doing. And have a safe night, drive home. It's a little rainy, wet. Please be safe, and thank you, everybody.